I almost want to just play some Overwatch while we talk, but that would be pretty counterintuitive, actually, considering it's a Blizzard product. So I guess Destiny it is then.
Welcome back to the Big Tech Guys podcast. This is the final episode you'll be able to listen to if you live in China.
I didn't think we had any Chinese viewers anyway, so I'm sorry if you are listening from China, but rip.
There's a lot that's happened. We've also been gone for a while.
That's true.
Well, there's kind of a reason. The reason we've been gone was we recorded an abomination that we'll release eventually.
Yeah, and also because we're busy getting together to do something, especially when last week Destiny 2 Shadowkeep came out, and that might have been everything I did last week, other than classwork.
Yeah, just to talk briefly on Shadowkeep, it had some issues at launch.
But honestly, I just want to talk about one thing regarding how they get some crap for it, but man, if that's not one of the most impressive server data migration things I've ever seen, ever. Legit, in 24 hours, they moved an entire database of user profiles and like data all the way over to a different client and like redid all their backend. And they were only down for like 3 hours.
Yeah, that was super impressive.
The whole reason there was a 24-hour window that it was down on Blizzard, the only reason it was down is so they had even just a little bit of time, like downtime to like actually migrate that info over that you gave like earlier for the PC switch.
I guess I never really thought about the fact that they just like migrated everything over like that.
Every single PC user account that signed up, that's a lot of accounts and data.
And on top of that, you're adding on to that database from all of the people who are getting on Destiny 2 because it's free now.
Right, that as well. They had to prepare for a free-to-play launch of a AAA level game. Like the amount of player influx they were expecting a lot. Like they're going to have their entire player base plus more log in on the exact same time. And the fact that they got the thing back up and running in like 6 hours, pretty impressive if you ask me.
Yeah, super good turnaround. I kind of trashed Bungie on the Big Tech Guys Twitter when it first came out. Then the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, dang, they actually did that pretty well considering the feat that they had to pull off.
I mean, Destiny's got its own issues, but man, that's an amazing and technical feat. I mean, props to their data and server guys.
Yeah, props to them. They're killing it.
They don't get that recognition.
The reason that our podcast is now getting banned in China is because China has been up to some shenanigans.
Some big shenanigans. And you're like, wait, this is a tech podcast with a little bit of politics. Why are you just talking about China? Well, here's the thing. China, esports. Uh-oh, is all I have to say.
I guess for me, really the only place to start is to go back to the beginning. There have been some serious protests going on for past several months in Hong Kong.
They started off very peaceful. It's been like, what, 4 months or something like that? It keeps just escalating.
I was gone at a summer camp for most of the time. I don't know if you know much more about it, but I just know that's targeted at the Chinese government.
I vividly remember seeing in the news that it was like the first few weeks of the protests that the Hong Kong like prime minister, basically like the puppet like leader like that China has in place of Hong Kong or whatever. She was saying that we hear you, we understand that you guys are protesting. It's for good reason, but we're not really going to do anything about it. Basically, is what they said. Which kind of made people more angry than if they had just said nothing. Being acknowledged, but saying, "Yeah, we don't care." I might want to do some like research here just to make sure I'm not like butchering the story really bad. Because I mean, you know, I at least want to have it mostly correct. But
yeah, according to BBC in this article I'm reading right here, they outlined the story in 100 words, so I figured I'd just read that. Hong Kong's protests started in June against proposals to allow extradition to mainland China Critics feared this could undermine the city's judicial independence and endanger dissidents. Former British colony, Hong Kong has some autonomy and more rights than the mainland under a one country, two systems deal. City leader Carrie Lam agreed to suspend the bill, but demonstrations continued and developed to include demands for full democracy and an inquiry into police action. The bill was finally withdrawn in September. Clashes between police and activists have been becoming increasingly violent, with police using tear gas and activists storming parliament.
They don't want to become mainland China. What Hong Kong is weird because they're not actually they've never really been a part of China until except for the past like 10, 12, 15 years. More like 15 or actually it's more like 20 years now actually, just about. But it really hasn't been that long that they've even been affiliated with China. They used to be a British colony, as he said earlier in the article. But um, yeah, now they're in kind of it's weird because they're that means most of their population knew a time in which China was not involved. They kind it's not like oh you grew up and you always knew that China was not a part of things or that China was a part of things. No, like they knew what it was like before China and after China. Most of their citizens, um, which is kind of, I feel like that's like also part of it when they're trying to usher in these. I feel like they're trying to usher in these changes too fast. Not that they should be in the first place, but that's a whole nother deal. I mean,
Well, I remember in like I don't remember when it was, but it was like pretty deep into the summer, and I got my phone back one weekend, and I went on Reddit, and I accidentally like scrolled over to like the popular tab, and I hate doing that. But the top post was like a military convoy rolling into Hong Kong. I had heard nothing about this whole thing. Um, and I guess it was like July or August. I guess it was like early July when I saw a video and I was like, and I didn't realize that Hong Kong had basically become like a war zone. Like it was that violent. I think I had heard somewhere that like there were like some Hong Kong protests here and there, but just seeing like a video of like all of like the tanks and army rolling into Hong Kong was like it gave me chills. Like I was just like I've been completely oblivious to this for like the past week, past month.
the government in Hong Kong has been fighting it with violence since the beginning. It's just as of like the past month or two, they've really been bringing in the big guns because like at first it was just they brought out riot police even when it was peaceful. Now they're having to deploy uh like almost like a police military like basically uh militarized police officers basically. I mean, none of them are using lethal weapons, but like still they're not exactly trying to keep citizens. There have been a lot of things about the Hong Kong police abusing severely abusing protesters. And it's just at this point, it's just getting to be it's a back and forth. Like, uh, it's not looking good. Basically, it doesn't show any sign of stopping.
One thing I've noticed at Auburn, at least, is that the dueling ideas are like very present here too. Auburn's a very international campus. There's a lot of transfer students from China, and I remember like seeing it in July, seeing the military roll in, and then I think it was a couple weeks ago. I was in the Haley Center, and there's like a board where people can pin stuff up, like announcements for um, like clubs and stuff like that. It's just like a main building. There's a board in there where people can like put stuff up. And I remember one day walking in and seeing like pro Hong Kong propaganda, um, and it was just like fight for Hong Kong, like fight for democracy. I was like, all right, that's cool. But I guess I didn't realize like how it was still a dueling idea when the very next day I walked into the Haley Center and that same propaganda was covered up by pro-China propaganda, like pinned directly over it. Like you could like fold over the pro-China propaganda and see the pro-Hong Kong propaganda.
That surprises me to even see pro-China propaganda in America.
I'll try
I
to
mean,
put a picture of it on the YouTube version because it was on Reddit. Somebody put it up there.
communism in and of itself is not like it's an idea that just I feel like can't be executed in a way that doesn't involve like what it promises just never ends up working out the way communism is supposed to work. Like it ends up just becoming communism except for the high class.
I've heard an argument a couple times that like communism hasn't been given a fair shot, but I really don't think that's the case. I just think that it's a perfect idea on paper. It's just a bad idea. Communism works great when you don't have people wanting more because it's just a natural human nature for us to like want the next best thing. So like with the iPhone or whatever, the iPhone 11 Pro came out last podcast we did. That was like a month ago, and I've already seen so many people like our age, like with iPhone 11 Pros or whatever, and I asked them like why they got them, and it wasn't because it had a better camera. It wasn't because it was like there was something better about it. It was just because people wanted to have the next best thing. And because of that, I think that's just like one of the critical ways in which communism fails is because it starts off in such a harmless way, in such a noble way that like we're all gonna work and we're all going to we're all going to contribute to the same cause and everybody's going to get the same payout. But when you have the ideas of like greed and laziness tied into that, you just start to get this conflict between the people who are working hard but aren't seeing the result and the people who aren't working that hard but seeing the result because they are established as leaders of a party where everybody is supposedly created equal.
The problem with communism is that I will say someone has yet to implement communism in its most true form, aka no actual leading party. Problem is that I feel like that's already doomed to fail because just the way society like societal constructs work, like someone is going to move to power, whether they will be appointed eventually. What it might not be necessarily formal, it may even just be people all respect this one person or look up to this one person. It's like a natural power. Just people give power basically in that sense. If you know what I'm trying to say. Like it would happen anyway, even if it wasn't. Because most of the time communism has been entered in with like uh in the case of Russia and the Soviet Union, they had like leaders to help get things started, and then they just never went away. So, uh, yeah,
Well, now that we've explored communism and why it won't work, let's talk about what we really want to talk about because, well, we're the big tech guys. We like us some tech. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened in the Hong Kong and China protests this week in regards to tech. A more major case of this was, well, South Park.
oh, I did see that.
South Park released a very controversial episode.
Not for the West.
Not for the West, no. I forgot exactly what he said, but he says something along the lines of if you want to make money, you have to bow to the will of the Chinese people, or something along those lines. I can't find like an official. No, I found it. It's you gotta lower your ideals of freedom if you want to suck on the warm teat of China. That's the official quote. The context is like they're making a movie, and the guy who's talking to them is trying to tell them like why it won't be successful in China. With just putting out that episode, China censored all of South Park from the internet. Just like that, with that one episode.
I'm honestly surprised it didn't happen sooner, if you want me to be honest. I feel like China I was surprised to hear that they hadn't already done that. South Park's one of those shows that, it's always liked to get political and be controversial in that regard. And I'm just surprised that they haven't said something before that has just ticked them off.
Yeah, South Park's creators don't hold back, but I think that's also one of the hallmarks of the show. Like, it wouldn't be the same if they held back.
Right, like, it's not South Park if they're not going absolutely bonkers. to the point where and you don't just basically it's not really for everyone. I'm not a huge fan of South Park, but like I can respect the whole idea of the show.
I think South Park is the epitome of freedom of speech.
Yeah, as far as in a comedy show, yes, they really don't hold anything back. It's borderline. It's kind of I want to say it's like the original offensive humor, but they never go. I feel like they don't go far enough with it to be a super problem, but it's definitely if like that borderline offensive humor. But they actually there is it's more of a way of scrutinizing different things and different types of I don't know. It's not just messing with things for the sake of messing with things. There's always a statement there that they're trying to make.
South Park released a statement. It's they call it an apology. It's kind of like a backhanded slap. Did you see the apology?
No, I didn't.
I'm gonna read the apology word for word. It's from the two. I guess they're the creators of South Park. I don't really follow South Park that much, but it reads like the NBA. We welcome the Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. Z, the Chinese leader, doesn't look just like Winnie the Pooh at all. Tune in to our 300th episode this Wednesday at 10. Long live the great Communist Party of China. May this autumn sorghum harvest be bountiful. We good now, China?
Dang.
Yeah, the big story, which I figure we might as well get into. I'm going to pull up an article on it. So that I don't mess anything up. There's this video game called Hearthstone, owned by, I believe, an American company, Blizzard. I'm pretty sure they're American.
It's, owned by, it's American primarily.
Primarily.
They have, I believe, 5%. Tencent has 5% stake in the company.
Yeah, Tencent is a massive Chinese company. And this weekend was the last weekend of the Hearthstone Grandmasters regular season, according to this article from InvenGlobal. After finishing his match, Hong Kong player Blitzchung appeared on the official Taiwanese Hearthstone stream for his post-game interview wearing a gas mask. After lifting the mouthpiece, Blitzchung shouted in Chinese, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age." And during this time, the two commentators from Taipei literally ducked underneath the desk. They were so afraid of what was about to happen. And there's a video, it's still on Twitter circulating, but the casters just were like terrified. Blitzchung provided a statement to InvenGlobal. He said, "As you know, there's serious protests in my country now. My call on stream was just another form of participation of the protest that I wish to grab more attention. I put so much effort into that social movement in the past few months that I sometimes couldn't focus on preparing my Grandmaster match. I know what my action on stream means. It could cause me a lot of trouble, even my personal safety in real life, but I think it's my duty to say something about this issue." He got hit hard by Blizzard. What they said was they pulled up a rule that I'm sure they just drafted up afterwards that basically says that if any of the Hearthstone players involved in the game come into contact with like the media in a negative way, Blizzard reserves the right to take all of the prize money away and ban you from competitive play for a year. Again, that's insane that they were so focused on keeping their Chinese investment that they saw this one thing and they immediately just was like, "Yep, that's it. You didn't win anything." And also, yeah, you can't compete for the next year.
And not only that, I don't know if you said this already, but they immediately fired the two casters that ducked under the table. That's They were not they didn't say anything. They were just there. They didn't ask him to say that. They didn't ask him a question that would bring him to say that. He just said it, and they got fired because they were on the same screens.
Yeah, that was. I hate to say this, but I might have felt more like sympathy. I felt a ton of sympathy for Blitzchung because like he's speaking out, he's voicing his free speech, but just for like the casters, like there was nothing they could do, and for them to be caught, it's like that's their job is to like do this, and to just lose their job because of association with an event they can't control.
It's like if someone was cheating in your class and your whole team got in trouble for cheating, or your whole class got in trouble for cheating just because one person did. It's like it's basically guilty by association, but it's like not. It's obviously no one else. They weren't associating. It's not like, oh, the line's not clear, so therefore we're just going to, you know, make sure. No, the line's pretty clear. They clearly had nothing to do with it. They just wanted to cover all their bases. Uh, and I I just think it's just very. I just don't like it. I like that's really just I just don't like it at all. I mean, like for the casters, that's not fair to them at all. And for Blitzchung, I mean, uh, what's what's interesting is that the statement from Blizzard, they're talking about uh, the reason they did it is because he violated the rules, the Hearthstone Grandmasters official competition rules, and they actually quoted the exact section of the rules, which is that the rule states that engaging in any act that, in Blizzard's sole discretion, brings you into public disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard image, will result in removal from Grandmasters and the reduction of the player's prize total to $0, in addition to other remedies which may be provided for under the handbook and Blizzard's website terms. Now, Blizzard has always made a absolute metric ton of money from China. Like, I mean a ton. I'd wager China is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, monetary source from Blizzard. Their games are extremely popular in China, and not just one, all of them. With I'd say number one being either Hearthstone or WoW. Number two probably Diablo, and Overwatch is pretty large there as well. Not as big as Korea, but that it's just basically everything there. All Blizzard's products have always been huge in China to the point to where Lunar New Year is a huge event for Overwatch. At least that's like the main. wh- That's how you know. I guess I don't know. That's one way to put it. I guess, but like a lot of their revenue comes from China, and they value their Chinese customers. Um, this, at least as far as their rules go, I feel like it's extra, like their rules here are extra broad. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like, I mean, this more of may fall into the otherwise damaged Blizzard image, right? That might be what it falls into, which is so ironic that what they did afterwards is what damaged their image worse than him saying that. I actually maybe not. Actually, what's sad is that this is a huge deal, right? Do I think it's actually going to affect their sales numbers that much? Probably not. There are people canceling their WoW subscriptions, and there are people making a big deal about this, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to really mitigate China. Like the amount of money they make from China, like literally losing a little bit of their American market, I guarantee you they're probably just not. They don't care.
Would you believe me if I told you that this exact thing happened 2 hours ago? Again.
Wait, what do you mean?
During the Collegiate Hearthstone Championship, at the very end of this guy's match, he held up a sign that says "Free Hong Kong, boycott Blizzard." And within 2 seconds of him holding it up, they cut away to the face cam of Worcester Poly, and then immediately back to the caster. They also released a statement saying that there are going to be no more collegiate Hearthstone teams interviewed after the match. I was really hoping you were going to be able to make a podcast tonight, because I really wanted to.
Because we're getting it as it's kind of unfolding. Also, another thing, NBA, like Adam Silver, like the NBA, like head, like he came out and actually addressed their whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Blizzard, nothing negative. And also another thing, they disabled comments on their statement on Blitzchung.
It's almost like they knew it was going to be controversial.
Wow.
So one thing that's also unfolding today, outside of the Blizzard HQ,
Oh yes, they have their statue with the slogan.
every voice matters. As of today, it's been covered up by Blizzard employees.
Yep. Oh man.
With like a little sheet of like notebook paper too. Like they didn't.
Right. Right. They didn't like actually like try too hard, but like still.
I can't tell if it's a protest against Blizzard.
No, it's definitely a protest against Blizzard. It's definitely a take it off because they're lying. Because they don't, because of this incident. This whole thing is just a piece of work. I just don't like it. I really don't like it. And what makes me sad is that I don't know if anything will really change about it because China knows that they have a lot of businesses respect China only because of how much market they can control, how much profit they bring these businesses, you know? When you're almost a third of the world's population, you tend to control a lot of money like that.
China has locked down industry. You're a third, like you were saying, they're like a third of the world's population. You control so much. It's just so, you really just hate to see like it take its toll on like their player base, because this shows that like Blizzard would gladly take an investment from a Chinese company over player support.
Another extra thing, extra little bit on Slasher's Twitter account that he kind of posted this right when the Blitzchung thing came around. It's a reminder that Blizzard forces Taiwan to be called the Chinese Taipei in Overwatch World Cup, and players are not allowed to use the Taiwan flag icon while competing. Now that,
Man,
wow.
yeah, Blizzard is unapologetically doing this. There's no statement. There's no reason. They know there's nothing they can do to justify what they've done.
It's just it's a bit ridiculous. That's all.
Like, we take free speech for granted. We've talked about free speech on this podcast.
We talked about it in more of in response to being able to say whatever you want, and like, okay, you can't really say everything. You know what I'm saying? But it was more of a common sense type thing. This is more like people being restricted for voicing like just different opinions regarding contentious issues. And it makes me sad to see that it even reaches as far as the West. That like the influence of China is actually still present in like the West just because of its sheer size. Like that its censorship actually transcends overseas.
There was a joke that was going around of like, it was like a copy pasta where like you could just copy and paste it into like a game, and like somebody would just be like, if they were Chinese, like they would just like their internet would be shut off like that. And it was kind of funny like thinking about it, like, oh, like Chinese censorship. I don't know why I found it funny. But like the longer I've thought about it, especially with this whole thing, like that's crazy that like they're just the fact that like on Twitter right now there's people talking about how they want like Trump to get impeached. Imagine if like the Chinese like even tried to like voice their opinions on their leader. Like the fact that we are so freely allowed to criticize our government and the fact that your life would be in danger if you said anything other than what the Chinese government wanted you to say. That's a reality I can't imagine. But I'm seeing it unfold.
And here's a old tweet that it's just makes you think that they weren't really taking much into consideration. That they weren't taking America into consideration when they said this. Is that Blizzard has yet to reply to a request for comment on why they deleted the. This is about the VOD. Like when they had just deleted the VOD, they hadn't even talked about Blitzchung getting banned. But it's like the heat the NBA is deservedly getting for their response to the Maury situation will make Blizzard think twice about how they handle this. You want to know how they handled it? So much worse. And that is why it's turned into an actual international incident. They thought they could just get away. Like, I feel it's really weird. All of this Hong Kong, China stuff is just nuclear exploded this week. Like, NBA, then South Park, now Hearthstone. It's just been an enormous just explosion of it's just been an enormous explosion of just all very similar issues, but it's really the same problem.
It's crazy to see protests expand into the tech world because with social media we have the ability to protest in a way unlike anything else. Like it's interesting to see like it because I feel like social media is like a pretty Western concept. With the ability to say whatever you want, you have protesting in a way that we've never seen before. Like imagine if like the civil rights movement had something like Twitter, or like that would have changed the entire civil rights movement. I think that's one reason why something like Black Lives Matter has done so well, is because they use social media um to their advantage.
It's easy to get every event that people. It's hard to be blind to what's happening when you have action, not just statements from people all over the United States and the world, but you have video evidence, photo evidence. Like it gives you like it's hard to just have things buried under the rug. You know what I mean? Uh, you can't just have an event, something like that happen to you, and if you make it out like if you put it on the internet, like there you go.
Yeah, and like we heard about this like right when it happened. Like there was no like
This story is still unfolding.
yeah, I think that's
Like
what's crazy about like the fact
it
that we're recording this right now is like there's
yesterday is
still
when the
stuff
big
happening.
drop came out, and it's still like kind of developing even now. Like the collegiate thing was today, only a few hours ago.
There's a group of people right now when BlizzCon comes on planning on spamming like liberate Hong Kong in the chat. I'm really curious to see how that goes because something like chat you can ban words and stuff.
Right, and but the other thing is that isn't the BlizzCon stream you have to pay for, don't you? I'm like pretty sure you have to get the virtual ticket to even watch it. So like, are they really gonna ban the very people that paid for their tickets? See,
Blizzard has put
it's
themselves
really
in a
how
really
how
bad
far
spot.
how far are they going to go?
How much do they want to keep their Chinese market?
Well, it's like it's less of that very thing, them not censoring it in that situation would destroy their Chinese market immediately. I feel like it's more of they're so scared of losing it that they'll do literally anything to keep it, you know? Even if it's a small infraction, something that they might not even freak out over. I mean, in fact, it's not Blizzard themselves having an issue. You know what I mean? Like they didn't none like their president didn't come out and say something like in the NBA's case, you know? Um, like that would be a whole different deal. But it's just this whole Hong Kong thing is really not starting to gain a lot of traction overseas. Um, it really the whole situation just makes me sad because I really don't know if it will actually get any better. You know what I mean? At least on Hong Kong's side. I see it just getting more and more violent, and it's gonna end in a big thing. I don't know.
Something's gonna happen. This Hong Kong protest is one of the biggest things that's happened in our lifetime, I think, and I think it's just a matter of time before something like
Either China's gonna get involved or the Hong Kong protests are gonna get big enough to actually change the government. And I don't know if it's going to be a very much of a peaceful, hey, we're gonna change things. It might be a more violent, we're taking over.
I just think it's I feel like we are in for we're in for a ride.
Yeah,
This isn't over.
definitely.
It's only
Do I think that that's necessarily like it? That's is that it might not even happen. It may get resolved. I at this point though, if it was gonna fizzle out, it would have fizzled out. You know, it's still the fact that it's getting worse still. I mean, this is just a fundamental issue that Hong Kong has with China. It's not like a thing they can compromise on because it's kind of the whole idea of the current Chinese main things. They're protesting on not being lumped into Chinese mainland's policies, and I just it ain't gonna happen easy. It just makes me sad to see something that seems like it's so I don't know. It's just guaranteed violence, and it makes me sad that it's only going to get worse. But yeah, now you want to make a nice little call. Uh, Imagine if something happened with Epic in the next few days regarding China. Oh man, you already know Epic would be the first. Yeah, okay. Tencent has a 40% stake in Epic.
jeez.
Sweeney controls it. Um, Disney also owns a bit of it.
Really?
Yeah, apparently, but not. They don't own like basically the amount they own is very minuscule compared to like Tencent. They don't. Tencent actually has a major say in uh Epic.
That's insane. That Tencent has a 40% stake.
They apparently bought it when Fortnite was only in development. It was before it even came out.
That's a huge investment.
And boy, did it pay off for them.
Dude, I'm calling it. That's epic. Something's gonna happen. I don't know how. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
they purchased 40% in 2012. It's been the case for a while now. But here's the thing, with 40%, you already know anything happens in regards to China. Epic Epic's like 40% a Chinese company. Like even more it's even worse than Blizzard. And Blizzard I'm pretty sure they have 5%. Tencent has 5% stake.
BlizzCon might be the first time we see a riot like.
I mean, I'm very curious to see what happens, cause it's like a month away, and this won't be down in a month. I hope they don't think that it will.
November 1st through 3rd. You want to try to pirate it?
We'll figure. We'll trust me. We'll know if something happens. I have a feeling it's just it's gonna explode. If something happens, but I have a feeling people aren't just gonna go and be like, oh, we'll pretend nothing happened. People don't tend to do that.
What if they just turned off chat for BlizzCon?
That would be something, that's for sure. What would they do if people actually went there? Would they remove them from the event?
I
People actually
guess.
did stuff there. See that
That's
would just be
scary.
ridiculous. That would be ridiculous. It's kind of funny how I am more excited for or I wouldn't say excited. I'm more interested in BlizzCon now than I was when I was looking forward to new Overwatch content back 2 years ago.
Wasn't that where they have like Overwatch World Cup and stuff?
Yeah. I never really cared as much about the World Cup as I cared about new content. Last year, you just got to watch it to see them fake you out on Diablo 3. You guys don't have phones? Imagine paying $50 to see that live.
Bro, I would have paid $100 to see that live.
Man, that's a meme in the making. I almost okay. The only thing I might pay $100, like a meme that I would want to pay to see live, is the artifact of like the reveal.
I would pay so much money to travel back in time and be in the stadium when they announced Artifact.
I just want to be part of the collective. Oh, rip artifact, man. That was the fastest. It died. It was dead on arrival.
Bro,
It
Artifact was
literally.
dead as of launch. They announced the game and it was a failure.
I. It was literally. Well, let me see. What was the artifact player count after one day? It was like. It was stupid low.
Artifact has averaged 84 players.
Right now.
For the past 30 days, they've averaged 84 players.
Oh man.
They had 11,000 average players in December, 2,000 average players in January, 750 average players in February, 300 in March, 181 in April, 131 in May. They're actually on an uptick.
7 months ago, it was a little bit after the game came out, like a week or so. They dropped below 1,000.
Since we've gone out on a tangent, I'm going to do it again. Since we went out on a tangent, that's going to be it for this episode of Big Tech Guys podcast.
It's been good as always. I'm sorry, Chinese viewers. I don't know if you existed, but if you did, I'm sorry. Um, yeah, this one was kind of really tangential, but like, I feel like we still kind of talked about what we wanted to talk
Yeah, sorry if it was hard to follow. It's also like
about. 1
almost,
a.m.
yeah, it's late. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we're losing all of our Chinese viewership, but
I don't think it ever existed to begin with, so we're good on that one.
we now have a Twitter account. I forgot what our @ was. Crap. We are at the Big Tech Guys on Twitter. Yeah, go follow our Twitter. All right. Well, that's gonna be it. Thanks for listening, guys. Sorry if this was hard to follow.
Yeah, it probably was, but we always feel like it is. And sometimes we get that it's not. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
See you in 3 months.
Yeah, I guess so.
See y'all next time. Peace.
How many times